please silence your cell phones. Trustee Weems?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could just stay standing for a moment and remember all our men and women in armed services and all our emergency services folks, especially during the holidays, and anybody who's passed away locally in our community. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our village board meeting. It's a workshop, but we have a couple public hearings and there's public comment as well. So we need to get a motion and a second to open up the public hearing on amending the zoning law of the Village of Island Falls. Motion by trustee Gargiulo. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by trustee Carroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, is there anybody in the public audience or in the corner or coming up the stairs that would like to talk about zoning, the zoning law change?
Nobody? Okay. Yes.
Sure, come on up, Mr. General.
Yeah, first of all, last time there was,
We're gonna put the mic right there, and if you could just hang out over in the corner there.
yes. There was concern that, I was trying to somehow use my position in the zoning board of appeals to influence things, and I've gone to great lengths to say that I've always been speaking as a citizen, a resident, long-time resident, for good reasons. But I just want to clarify, I wear more than just one hat in this community. In addition to being a resident and a chairman of the zoning board of appeals, I was also asked to serve on the Comprehensive Plan 2020 Review Committee. I didn't volunteer, believe me, I was asked. So yes, I went to 3 or 4 meetings. Ahead of those meetings, I, as requested, wrote sometimes detailed written presentations on the proposal itself. I went to the follow-up meetings, I went to the public hearings. I did a lot of work for that that gives me another insight into this. And here's something else that's not known. And I may have mentioned this before, but the AOG has the local day-to-day governance is conducted by the president. Above the president is the chairman of the board and the board of directors. At the end of December, I will finish a 3-year term as on the advisory committee to the chairman of the board of the AOG. Okay. As such, I've been to a number of meetings over the past 3 years where they've discussed their plans or what they think they can do, things like that. So I've got a lot of insight into that, but that's just another hat that I wear. So last time I talked about condos and townhouses in the business district and how that could be a real problem, and I suggested that we change the wording to reflect apartments only in the business district, not condos, not townhouses, for reasons like who pays for Connect at the school. I've been thinking about that some more. Think about this. If you allow condos, especially in the business district, and you have condos in the residential part of that building, does that also mean that the business part of the building can be sold as condos? Let's say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 spaces on the first floor. Can all of those be sold as condos? Now you've got a real conflict between the residents who have one agenda and the people owning the condo space downstairs. Again, to eliminate that, I suggest that you change the wording to say that you can only have apartments in the business district, not any kind of condo ownership, just to prevent any kind of problems like that. Last time you brought up the fact that there has to be public notice, Mr. Mayor, about whenever anything becomes before the board, and I mentioned that within the town, the code says notice has to go out to everybody within 1,000 feet of the property. In the village, it's just adjacent neighbors, and that could be as few as 2, 3, or 4 neighbors. And they're the ones, next door neighbors, least likely to want to, muddy the waters. So I suggest that you expand that out, maybe 500 or 600 feet. It's not a problem for the building department. They already have software that creates the mailing list. But I think more than just the adjacent neighbors might be a better way to handle that. Now, I just had a quick look at what I guess you're voting on tonight. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it says 100% of the ground floor may be dedicated to revenue producing. That's true. Alternatively, up to 50% of the ground floor may be used for parking for residential dwellings located in the subject building. All right. But in no event shall less than 50% of the ground floor be used for revenue producing purposes. And what leaps out at me here is a glaring loophole. Say that the developer says, all right, I'm just going to put 20% parking. That leaves 30% more that I can put residential in that you don't want them to do. And then 50% would be commercial. So that's, the way it's worded, it looks like there's a loophole there. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. Based on what we have in front of us, the only way you'd get a reduction is if you were going to provide parking.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right, but it says, alternatively, up to 50% of the ground floor may be used for parking for residential dwellings located in the building, but in no event shall less than 50% of the ground floor be used for revenue producing purposes. So the guy says, I got 50% revenue, I got 20% parking, bingo, I can put in 30% residential on the first floor, the way this seems to be worded.
We're not granting any residential on the first floor.
But that's what it says.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Janarone, how would you, I don't see the loophole, but given your experience, how would you have worded it? Because that can be changed tonight if you think there's a loophole.
I think there's a loophole there that they could say, I'm only putting 10% parking in. I'm going to put 50% like it says right there. That leaves 40%, I can do what I want with it, and then I'm putting in residential on the first floor.
I think you had that same comment the first time around, and I still don't see the loophole. The current restriction, let me get it in front of me. I just had it. I don't know what I did with it. "100% of the ground floor may be dedicated to revenue-producing uses." Okay. Alternatively, 50% can be used for parking. But in no event shall less than 50% of the ground floor be used for revenue-producing purposes. So that says you can leave 30% vacant, but you can't use it for parking, or you can't use it for residential. I'm not getting where you think
Well,
there's
what
a
can they
loophole.
use it for? That's my point.
They can only use it for, well, first of all, you can't force someone to, if someone says, well, I can use 50% for parking for the residences up top. The rest I can use for revenue-producing uses, right? That doesn't mean that I can use them for something else or for nothing, but you can't force someone to have 50% of the ground floor fully occupied, but you can restrict them from using it for anything but revenue-producing
Yeah, well,
uses.
again, the way that last sentence is, it seems like there's a hole. They've got,
I think you would have the same, based on your logic, I think you'd have the same hole if you didn't have the last.
no, I mean,
Well, how would you word it? I'm seriously asking you, how would you word
it's
it?
not my job, Mom, but okay, I'm being.
Well, you're criticizing
No,
it,
yeah,
and you
I am.
obviously see a loophole, so.
Yeah, I do. I think that somebody could come in and say that it says, in no event shall less than 50% be used for revenue-producing purposes. The guy will say, I have 50%, okay? But I only used 20% for
So someone is gonna leave 10 or 20% just vacant?
I don't know, but they're gonna.
But you
they'll-
can't force them to okay.
Can they try to say, I can use that for, I've met the 50%.
I don't see how they can use it for anything other than revenue producing.
I hope you're right. I hope the board is.
Yeah, there's nothing on the books that would allow them to put the residential on the bottom floor.
Or anything else other than
Commercial.
revenue,
All right, well,
commercial.
Okay,
We
Well-
took that other at the work session, we took that portion out.
Right. I'm just not seeing the loophole.
I'm just saying that they can say, I meet the 50% requirement, I only use 20% for parking, why can't I put residential in there?
There's no
Because they
re-
can't.
There's no residential on the ground floor.
Does it
Because
say that
there's,
above that?
It's kind of, when you go to page 2, where it gives the definition, drinking places, entertainment, office, civic, cultural, or recreation. And then it goes, and residential use in the form of apartment dwellings and similar residential dwellings located on the floors above. I would like us to somehow word in there, no residential is permitted on the ground floor. And I-
but you're
and I-
allowing 50%. Oh, okay. So,
I would like it clarified that no residential, somehow, somebody, where that and is, it be stated that no residential on the ground floor, and then residential uses in the form of apartment dwellings can only be located on the upper floors. Somehow, something like
so
that.
for the purpose of this chapter, this is the full definition that you're looking at.
Yes.
Mixed-use development is defined as development that provides revenue-producing use of a building on the ground floor, such as, but not limited to, retail, restaurant, eating and drinking places, entertainment, office, civic, cultural, or recreation, and residential use in the form of apartment dwellings and similar residential dwellings located on the floors above.
Well, revenue producing, and then, well, I'm just asking the
Yeah,
question.
no, I'm looking at it. And
Revenue producing is an apartment, true?
Well, no, it's.
That's why.
First of all, you're saying such as, which defines a category of revenue producing, and then you're distinguishing that from residential as not being revenue producing. So, no, I wouldn't read that under statutory construction as
Okay.
including residential. Now, if you want to strengthen it, then
Somehow-
what would you do?
That's why I was asking where the and is with no residential on the ground floor and then continue after that somehow, some
Well,
way.
then you'd have to
Well,
say,
Just to say though, it's saying residential use in the form of apartment dwellings and similar residential dwellings located on the floors above.
What would be the similar? Is that condos?
well, my concern about Mr. Janaro's comment is you can't really, and we went through this years ago, if you recall, Mr. Janarone, with the townhouses and the condos. And the gentleman was told that he couldn't have condos, but you can't regulate form of ownership. So if someone says apartment, and then they decide to make those apartments condominiums, you know, their ownership is, you can't say, well, you can't make them condominiums.
Right.
It's unfortunate because you get less, well, you get more revenue from condos and single-family homes and townhouses than you do from apartments.
Sure.
But there's no legal way to restrict the form of ownership.
Okay,
So that, I get your point there, but
yeah,
can't do it.
all right.
And we
That's 'cause
went through
That's
that.
what's gonna happen. You're gonna see, because what happened at one of the properties, if you read the fine print, what he was going to do was put up units that he was going to call condos, and then the commercial space on the first floor was going to be condominium ownership.
Well, I don't really know how you would do that. I mean, condominium is not a retail use.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
I
You know.
know, but it's-
Right, that doesn't make sense. So,
It's a can of
however,
worms.
to your point and to your point, we could say such as, et cetera, cultural or recreation. Period. Residential use in the form of apartment dwellings and similar residential dwellings may be located on the floors above, but not on the ground floor, except as stated, but then you have that exception. So if you want to do that, I can rework it so that it does that. And I think it's not such, it's a de minimis change. It doesn't change the meaning of the local law. So I think you could do it tonight and adopt it tonight. But I'd want a few minutes to really think about how to reword that. So, I mean, you can go ahead and in the meantime, I'll think about that. If the board wants me to perhaps eliminate any question as Mr.
Strengthen
Turner.
that sentence, that's what.
What if you put after dwellings only located on the floors above?
Residential dwellings,
Only located on the floors above.
okay. Residential use in the form of apartment dwellings and similar residential dwellings may only be located on the floors above?
Well, how does that sound to you? Does that sound like it has a little more
May
definition?
only be,
Located on the floors above.
Certainly, as a matter of fact.
and then you're strengthening it again, 100% of the ground floor may be dedicated to revenue producing, and then you have the alternative, up to 50%. Do you think that that satisfies your
Yeah, that
loophole?
strengthens it up, so, yeah, thanks for listening.
No problem.
Yeah.
So, okay?
Okay, so we've got 3 ways that says only 50%.
Yeah.
Okay,
You okay?
that can be done.
Amelia, you okay with that?
Sure.
You okay? Okay. Anybody else, public comment? Sure, come on up, Mr. Smith.
Eric Smith, I live on Lake Street, and like the previous, I wear a bunch of hats too. So we got correspondence, the planning board sent you stuff, hopefully looked at it. I kept it pretty brief, if you had any questions. And then wearing the other hat as the fire chief. I don't usually comment on things, but I did previously. That is adjusted,
Yes.
right, as, okay, all right. The only thing I would just say about that previous thing is, if it's a prohibition, shouldn't it be in the body and not in a definition?
Well, you put it in the definition because the zoning board of appeals is not allowed to modify definitions. They can grant relief to the zoning law,
Right.
but not the definitions that are
Okay.
contained in zoning. Yeah. So that even further limits it.
Do I have to stick around for number 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have that one change,
Yeah, it'll,
verbiage.
yeah.
Okay,
So I'll
that'll
have to resend it to the board.
No problem.
before-
But we're okay to move forward with it tonight.
Yes, yes.
And then the other change, as the fire chief mentioned, was that we're gonna keep the maximum height for publicly assisted senior citizens, multiple dwellings. It's at 70 feet, we're putting it to 50 feet to match everything else. And I think that was the only, and we got rid of the residential on the first floor. Those were the substantive changes at the workshop that we had. Anybody else on the zoning law change? Going once? Going twice? Okay, and we're just gonna close the public hearing in regards to the zoning law changes. I need a motion and a second and a board vote. To close, just to close the public hearing. Motion by trustee Gargiulo, is there a second? Seconded by trustee Carroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you. And I need a motion and a second for the continuing public hearing on the permitting and regulating short-term rental property within 1 and 2 family homes. We're just making a motion, a second, to open that public hearing tonight.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Gargiulo, is there a second? Seconded by trustee Carroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anybody on public comment in regards to permitting and regulating short-term rental property within 1 and 2 family homes? Just so the public knows, we had at our workshop, we touched a little bit on it. There's a lot to that law. And we didn't have the attorney there just because we had the schedule change. So we're gonna probably have one more special meeting in January. We'll keep the public hearing open. I'd like to keep the public hearing open till our at least January 5th meeting. And then after that point, we'll probably have a special meeting with the attorney present so that we can kind of hash that out. I would imagine that'll be a decent meeting, and that will be the only thing on the agenda for that special meeting. There's a lot to that law. We had a lot of suggestions from residents, and we threw a couple things around. So some of that we have in minutes and notes to the attorney, but it's good for us all to get together and have a powwow in public about it. So is there anything from the public in regards to this, the short-term rental law? Yeah, sure, come on up.
So will you present what your changes are prior to the next meeting, like maybe in the paper? or-
Probably after the work session, and then we might, after the work session, probably after the changes, probably keep the public hearing open to the next meeting in January. It would be up to the board. And then I'm hoping by February we have something that we're gonna pass.
Okay,
Or
and
reject.
have you had an opportunity to check communities that may be slightly similar to us? Because we are an anomaly here in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend to the board to do, their homework when they want,
Okay,
yeah,
I'll do some research myself.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I know you will.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this? So, motion and a second to continue into January 5th? Okay, so I need a motion and a second to continue the public hearing on the short-term rentals to January 5. Motion by trustee Gargiulo, is there a second? Seconded by trustee Carroll. You guys okay down here today? You can hear me okay? Oh, I'm just checking. Seconded by trustee Carroll, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. So the public hearing is continued for permitting and regulating short-term rentals to January 5th. So we'll start in the regular meeting. Thank you all for coming. It's our last meeting of the calendar year. We tried to have less meetings this month, but that's okay. We're a busy board, so I appreciate everyone's schedule and changes, and I also appreciate the community's input. We strive for that. Anybody from any local organizations that have any comments to make? Any elected officials or councilman-elect comments? Public comment on agenda items? Oh, I can see you guys want to get out of here too. Okay, first on the agenda is approved bills and claims, warrant number 2507A for fiscal year 25-26. Total amount is $110,922.39. Please, trustees, don't forget to sign the main document downstairs before you leave tonight. I would greatly appreciate it. I know I looked at the bills, and I believe trustee Olivia did as well. So I need a motion and a second and approval for that.
Motion to approve.
Motion by trustee Olivia.
Giving them a chance over
I
there.
know, I appreciate that. Second by
Yeah, second.
trustee Gargiulo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Next, we have accept the following minutes as written for November 17th, 2025 was a public hearing on water surcharge and workshop meeting. Motion by trustee Gardjulo, is there a second? Seconded by trustee Carroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Part of the resolution tonight that we would approve is a resolution adopting a secret negative declaration for the zoning law modification, which you have all in front of you. And we have to approve, do I have that? Is that the first one here? Oh, that's the actual one. Do you have that in front of you there? Oh, here it is, I got it right here. Negative deck. Okay, so the resolution is, whereas by resolution dated October 20th, 2025, the Village of Highland Falls introduced a local law amending zoning law to reduce the height of buildings for senior citizens, multifamily housing from 70 to 50 feet, and increase the height of the mixed-use development building to 50 feet. Enumerate exceptions of the calculation of height such as parapets and bulkheads to allow up to 50% of the ground floor area in mixed-use development buildings to be used for residential parking, and whereas the Village Board of Trustees is the only agency authorized to effectively modify modifications to the zoning law, and is therefore the only agency authorized to act as lead agency pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQR. Whereas the board caused a full environmental assessment form, whereas the board has thoroughly reviewed and analyzed Part 1 of the FEAF and determined that the proposed local law amending the zoning is Type 1 action under SEQR. Whereas the board has prepared a thoroughly reviewed and analyzed Part 2 and 3 of the FEAF, and whereas the board has analyzed the potential areas of environmental concern associated with the proposed action in accordance with the procedures set forth in 6 NYCRR 617.7, implementing SEQR. Oh, there's a lot here. I'm gonna stop here in a minute. Whereas the board consequently finds that modification of zoning law as referenced hereon will not have any significant impact on the environment for the following reasons: impacts on land, impacts on geological features, impacts on surface water, groundwater, impact flooding, impacts air, impacts plants and animals, impacts agricultural resources, impacts aesthetic resources, historical, archaeological resources, space, environmental areas, transportation, energy, noise, odor, light, human health, with consistency with community plans, consistency with community character. Now therefore be it resolved that based on the foregoing, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Highland Falls determines that this action, again, this action is the passing of the law, will not have a significant adverse effect upon the environment, and the environmental impact statement will not be required. So I need a motion, a second, we have a roll call. Again, this is just for the negative declaration for SEQR. Motion by trustee Gardjulo, is there a second? Seconded by trustee Carroll. Any questions? Roll call.
Trustee Ramos?
Aye.
Trustee Levia?
Can I abstain from this?
You can do it.
Because there's,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. Because there's quite a lot of paperwork here that goes with this that I did not get until 6:30 tonight. So I wasn't able to look through all of that. And I don't agree with the 50% ground floor area being used for parking. So,
Okay.
That's a
No.
nay.
Yep.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Gardjulo?
Yes.
Mayor DeSalvo?
Yes. Okay, that passes.
I do have one question for the attorney. So the GML that the county sent us, it talks about the ground floor space for dwelling units. Do we need to let them know that we made that change?
It was the original law, that's why they mentioned it. That was the original law that we sent them. That's why they mentioned it.
Yeah.
We don't need to send anything out to them so they know that
No,
residential will be on the ground floor.
no, because they said it was our purview to change.
It's a local determination, and also this is less impactful,
Okay.
so.
Just asking the question.
Yeah, no, I think that you're fine.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Okay. That's this part goes with that. Let's put there. We got, this is there. Hold on one second. That's for that. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the actual resolution, which I'm just gonna read and then we can have a discussion if you want. Okay. And we have, just so you guys know, we have the changes, we also have the wording change to add only on the ground floor to take care of what we think is a potential loophole, so that's also in the law that we did tonight. So the Village of Highland Falls resolution introducing local law number 5 of 2025, amending the zoning law of the Village of Highland Falls. Whereas the introductory local law titled amending the zoning law of the Village of Highland Falls is introduced before the Board of Trustees by October 2025. Whereas the local law was referred to the Orange County Planning Department on November 14th by a letter dated November 21, responded that the local law would have no regional impact and declared the zoning amendment was a local determination. And whereas the proposed local law was duly circulated to interested agencies, including the Consolidated Planning Board, the Consolidated Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Town of Highlands. Whereas the duly noticed public hearing was held on said local law on November 17th, December 1st, December 15th. Public discussion was heard concerning the merits of the proposed zoning law, and after hearing from all those present wishing to speak, the Board of Trustees declared the public hearing closed. We did that tonight. And whereas the Board of Trustees determined that the zoning amendment was a type 1 action pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.4B2 of the regulations implementing the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or AKA SECRA. And whereas the Board of Trustees thoroughly reviewed the potential environmental impacts of the local law, issuing the negative declaration on September 15th, 2025, closing secret, now therefore be it resolved that the introductory local law titled amending the zoning law of the Village of Highland Falls be hereby is adopted on December 15th, 2025 as local law number 5 of 2025 of the Village of Highland Falls. I'll do a motion in a second, we can have discussion if you guys have anything, okay? So I just need a motion.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Gargiulo, is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion. If you have any. I mean, we have had a couple public I will just say we've had a couple public hearings. We had a lot of input from the public, which we greatly appreciate. The board has spent a lot of time on this with several meetings. We had a good discussion. There's some things we took out, we made modifications to. There's some things that weren't even in the law that we added, the parapets and the other things. There's some language cleanup on the mechanicals at the top, which was good, that we spoke to different members of different boards about. So, and I understand that, it might not be every single thing we all wanted, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And as I've stated, for my personal position is, after we pass this zoning change, it's important that, I think as a community, we see something, a project start. So, that's where I'm at. But I'm open, anything else anybody has to say, we can.
Well, I'm not thoroughly happy with the heights. I thought we really should have gone all the way through with it, but I'm not going to be instructions at this point. That,
Okay.
I mean, I can go on why and this and that, but again, there's some action, and I appreciate
Bring the mic over.
that there's some action moving forward. I just feel that,
Pete, bring the mic over. Thank you,
sorry.
Deputy.
mean, any action is some action at this point, but I would have been happier to see these heights go to 55 and 70.
Trustee Ramos? Trustee Olivia, sorry. Jump in whenever you want.
I would like to see, I really think we could push off the first floor parking until we have some more information. It was actually just brought to my attention today that there's another study that's supposed to be in the works for the directional flow of Main Street. And I would feel more comfortable to be voting on the first floor usage of the buildings with more information. I don't think we have enough here to be making a truly educated decision, so.
Well, that was that street study that Orange County was going to do for us, right? The one that I was asking about?
Yeah, so just keep in mind that it's really two different things, okay? The parking that's going to address is going to be parking for commercial use on Main Street. I don't think we want to create a scenario or a environment where we're going to focus on residential parking for dwellings that are in buildings, that their sole parking source is going to be spots that we would want to see commercial use for. Now, I'm not naive in the sense that I think that people use it, but, you know, as we talked, we've all talked independently. I mean, my phone was ringing off the hook when I was trying to shovel my driveway about parking during a snowstorm. You know, we have lots of cars that are going to come off of what I hope come off of other village streets and park in that center lot. So if we create more parking on Main Street, it's going to accommodate that overflow during bad winter. Now, I don't think that there's a problem that if a developer wants to come in and put a building in and want to provide parking for their residential dwellings, why we wouldn't want to give them, God bless you. That was a good, you timed that right, by the way. I don't know why we wouldn't want to give that incentive to them so that they can handle their parking for their property. The study is something that I'm sure will be a competitive study that we have to put in for. I don't know how much money that we'll be able to attain to do the study. We want to do the study, the board wants to do the study, but those parking changes may be within 5 years away. In the meantime, are we not going to have that incentive for the potential of projects that could come forward within 5 years? So I don't disagree that it's something we're going to look at, and I've spoken to every board member individually on this. We're going to do that study. The more parking, the merrier. And this is an incentive. The person who's doing the building doesn't have to use it at all. Their plan might not have it at all. So, you know, it's another tool in the toolbox for us to get some economic development on Main Street, which is what we all kind of strive for, and we've all mentioned numerous times. So I don't necessarily disagree with getting the information about the study for the Main Street in regards to parking, but I don't think it will solely address it. It's not a silver bullet to handle residential parking, which I think is an incentive we want for builders to put in on their property for residential dwellings that they want to put in on their building.
I think that actually speaks to my issue with the height in saying that, you know, we're speaking to one developer, we're speaking to one set of developers. Should that not all pan out, why aren't we really just making it desirable for anybody to come in, any developer to come in Cornwall, that beautiful hotel that's going up, that's actually in action? It would be so great to have these heights in place for somebody like that who's really ready to go to put in. So the parking and the height, I think, speak to both of what I'm talking about, making that desirable to not just this one set of developers that we've been relying on this whole time, not to say that it's not going to happen, but what if it did all fall through tomorrow? Where is our bargaining chip with other people wanting to come in? So with that, the parking, yeah, I wouldn't stymie this because of the parking. Again, that could take, like you said, 5 years or so, and that's not a purpose for me to stop this. Although I do understand Trustee Olivia's concern about that. I think that just is my whole vision. We have to be making this as desirable for anybody to want to come in and do. We could open up the waterfront tomorrow and still have nothing here because nobody wants to do it because we don't have the height requirements that most developers have said that they've needed. And that's really, thank you for opening that and letting me express it better than I really was, but that's how I feel about it.
Well, I'm not sure how enticing of a statement that is for any developer to come in, and we also need to be under the impression, or at least prepared, that people are going to utilize what we're changing in its entirety. We're not to be changing it to 50% and assuming people are not going to use the full 50%. We need to be under the assumption that people are going to utilize the full capacity of what we're changing. So that being one point, and another point to the parking and the height, all of these things kind of correlate together. We have to be looking at not just each individual change that's being made, but how all of these changes collectively affect the full working business district. And I know that the limitations in the parking that are there now were somewhat of a backing point for the density control because of the other changes that were made for the size of the units. So all of these things kind of come into play, and if we open up further the available parking that a developer can use, how does that change the density of what can actually go into that building?
I don't disagree with the comments in regards to density, and those guardrails are still in place. The previous board had the foresight to put those guardrails in after we heard from the public. Again, the main reason why we talked about those guardrails, and particularly we named parking as part of those guardrails, is because we didn't want parking to end up on the commercial side of Main Street. We don't want, the last thing we would want is if we have a business on the ground floor to not be able to park customers on Main Street to visit the commercial space, whatever it is, restaurant, shops, etc. Whether I have 20 units or I have 10 units or I have 30 units, 10 cars, 20 cars, 50 cars on Main Street does not help us. So having this incentive, whether they decide to use it or not, I mean, we had a developer in here that said at one point cars were going to be obsolete and hovercrafts were going to be the new thing. It was laughable at the time, but my point is that, or they said that people won't use cars at all, they'll just walk everywhere. Obviously, they don't live here, they don't understand how it works, we're kind of in a fishbowl, you need a vehicle. Regardless of that, I think we've heard from members of the planning board individually as residents who came to meetings and said, it allows them to be creative with their plan. It allows them to be creative, and I say them. This is not geared to any one specific developer. The zoning law has been changed for any developer to come in and say, hey, you know, we wanted to add one more unit, but we have a parking issue, but wait a minute, there's an incentive to create a parking in the building that we're gonna build, or on the property that we're gonna build. And as I said at the work session, I think it would be a tremendous selling point that if you wanted to have a penthouse at the top and you have 3 spots that you go with the penthouse, that's part of a sale for that property. Why wouldn't you want to have parking available for your customer, which may satisfy the 50% or up to the 50%. So if they want to use 25%, create 3 spots or 5 spots or whatever many spots depending on the size. It's a huge selling point, and you have parking right on the property. So again, the rails are there for the density portion. The rails are also there for parking. This just gives them, again, another tool in the toolbox to build something. You know, we heard from a couple different developers. We've all heard individually from folks who want to do something on Main Street. Parking seems to be what they consider sometimes a hindrance. We're allowing them to come up with a way to create parking and have parking on their property. Again, they don't have to do it. They're not required to have it as long as they fit the criteria of the law. They have to fit the criteria of the law. If they want to put so many units in, and they have to have parking available for them. So that's my point of view. I'm not trying to minimize what you're saying at all, but I think the law, as now our second revision on it, is pretty good. Is it perfect in the sense that we got everything we wanted? No, probably not. But you know, if like I had said, if we get overwhelmed, or if the building department gets overwhelmed with 10 projects and we start to see a pattern, that's a good time for us to adjust the law then again, if we need to. it's, you know, obviously the law is the law, but it's fluid in the sense that if we have to change it, we can change it. But I think this is a good step in the reduction, and it also takes some arguments away from people that come to this meeting that say, you know, hey this, hey that, hey this. I mean, we've had residents come here about parking, we've had residents come here about density, we've had residents come here about do something. I think this puts us in, and checks off a lot of boxes.
So, just to comment on what you said, there is no residential parking allowed in the front of the buildings,
Yeah,
on the lot.
yeah.
That's already in the code. My concern, another concern, which obviously is not part of this, but the bifurcated lots. When they start to buy lots behind them, it's going to create issues. And as far as not making money on the keys, as some of the developers came in and said, I need X amount of keys or else I'm not gonna make money. When they start to do these covered garages with 4 stories or 3 stories above it, depending on their architecture, it's gonna be very expensive for the steel. So it's definitely gonna slow them down. We do give them the opportunity though, and I will have to agree with getting the parking for residential use on the lot. The lots are gonna be difficult because, you know, they're anywhere from 50 to 75 feet wide. So it's not a lot, and then they have to have a travel lane to get into their parking areas unless they have a corner lot. Now, we know Shades and that whole clump that has been purchased but not combined yet, that's a corner lot. That's gonna be very beneficial for them for an in and an out, just based on a dirty sketch. So corner lots are gonna be a premium, but there's not that many of them here. But it will help. But I think in the future, we really need to talk about the bifurcated lots.
Okay. And listen, I always appreciate when we're unanimous moving forward, but it doesn't mean we have to be. And if you would like to pull the portion of the parking out and do a second vote on that, I think we could do that. Can we take that out and do it, or do we have to do it all in one?
You mean 50%?
Yeah, if we voted on that separately.
I think you're gonna, effectively start, that's a big thing.
No, I mean, just, we're voting on the whole thing tonight, but just have 2 votes, one on the whole law and then one on the 50% portion for the parking. Okay.
I mean, that's what's in front of you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna call for a roll call. I just, meaning, for the public, meaning if we wanted to break it up in 2 votes. But that's okay. I got the legal. We'll move, I'm gonna call for a roll call.
Trustee Ramus?
Hey,
Trustee Olivia?
No. I'm very much about doing things the right way the first time. I would like to have more information for that. I'd like to give you the height tonight, but if it's all as one, no.
Just make sure that's in the minutes.
Trustee Carroll?
If we vote against it, what the hell will it take us to get back to it?
I don't know what that means.
We vote against it tonight.
If it fails, it fails.
it'll take about 2 more months, Pete. Because we're gonna have to change whatever we wanna change in it, correct me if I'm wrong. And then,
Go through the process
and then go through the
again.
process again, half of it which is done.
It has to go to, but.
No, it's not done. You have to
It's
start
not
all
done.
over again.
You have to start over again. So I would just, as your counselor, the mayor makes a good point. This is a step in a certain direction that this board has been talking about for years. And if in the future, it's not quite there, if in the future the board decides that, oh my gosh, every single developer is going to the ZBA for some type of variance because it's not this or it's not that, that's the time that the village always can modify the zoning yet again to, if there's a problem with the parking, you address it then. If you find new information that's gonna impact traffic and parking, you modify it again. I mean, the zoning is a living document. So, as your counselor, I'm just saying that if you don't vote on what's in front of you tonight, then the process starts over again, with all the implications that means.
I vote yea.
Trustee Gardullo,
Yes.
Mayor DeSalvo.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Nothing on that. Public comment? On anything at all? Maybe a Christmas gift that you want to return? Whatever you want, sir. As long as it's, for public consumption.
Rockwell's. I've been asking the school district for a year now for the capacity of the school system by building, by grade, for optimal occupancy for education and for average and for distressed education.
Not to cut you off, you mean like number of students?
Number of students by class and by facility. In this boardroom right here, a year ago, they told me they'd give it to me. They didn't. I've called twice, and they still haven't even responded to my recent calls. So I think the board needs to have that information as part of the guardrails. You look at the water capacity, you look at parking, you look at all these other things, sewer, but I think the impact on education is much more profound.
I don't disagree with you at all, and I will say probably over the last decade at least, enrollment's gone down. I mean, at one point, there was 1,100 kids in that school. I think we're at 850 right now. Those are
Actually, from the state education department last year, it was 925.
Yeah, I don't know if they're at 925 now.
All right, well, whatever it is.
No, I agree with you.
I think the board needs to have that
Sure.
information. You've got all the other stats.
Sure.
And you're looking at guardrails, the impact on school tax for the community and the affordability of this community, it's much more impacted by school taxes than anything else.
Sure. Anybody else?
Is that 950 total school, you're saying? Total high school, everything? Or
I heard 850 was total, yeah.
total all schools
You
combined?
and I will talk school after school. Anyway, I just want to say, it's a big undertaking to make a local law. I don't think people in the general public realize it or knew. When I was new on the board, it was all Japanese, even though I had gone to meetings for 25 years. It didn't matter. When you're in that seat, yes, you have a responsibility. However, if we don't move this community forward, I'm going to sell you all tumbleweeds, because that's what's going to roll down Main Street. So please keep that in mind when you're voting on things.
Anything else, public comment? No? Okay. Okay, I need to go into executive session, so I need to talk about litigation and personnel matters, so I just need a motion and a second for that. I need the village attorney and I need the Chief Eric Smith to stay in the,
Do you want to just do all reports real quick if we have anything?
no, I want to go into executive session. You don't have to stay if you don't want. I need a motion and a second.
Thank you.
Motion?
Second? All in favor? Motion carried. I don't have them on there.